Hello friends, my name is Christopher, or as my wife calls me when I wear the mosquito jacket, Creepy Chris. Today's Monday, the 20th of September 2021. Let's take a look at the garden. First off, the trees in the orchard. I need to take off the wrap from this year, let them breathe for a month, and then wrap them up. No more fruit left to show. They also need to be pruned, so that's good. You can appreciate right now that it's raining. It just got done with a little bit of a downpour. But compare this to a couple weeks ago. I've been cleaning. All the squash is gone. Some of the dead or the dying Mexican sunflowers are gone, and the garden is thinning out. I had a massive problem with those beautiful but invasive morning glories. I was ripping them out left and right. Gotta watch that next year. While this has been thinned out, all these beans are done producing. There are a couple green ones, a little firm, but they might be good for eating. Plenty for saving and shelling, for planting next year. But effectively, it's time to just take down all the greenery on top of the arch trellis. This is the one section of the garden that I haven't gotten to, and you can see that the morning glories have crawled, over my black currants, kind of in the red ones. The raspberries that didn't make it into the trellis are falling over, but the raspberries are going to be a great big pruning project in a couple weeks anyways, so we're just kind of putting a pause here. The barrels are mostly done. I'm happy to say I was cutting some kale and chard all year long, pulling peppers. There's a red one there, but look at this. This is morning glory climbing up, and it's so heavy that it's actually pulling my Mr. Sun forward. Pretty interesting. And now we take a nice pan, and you can see how much cleaning I've done, and truly it's significant. So let's go item by item. I pulled out the pea trellises that were here, the overgrown weeds, and the potatoes. You can see that, sorry, I got gloves on. You can see that some squirrels are starting to dig up the potatoes that are on the top and eat them. Underneath here are the potatoes that I should pull. Jerusalem artichoke time. The Jerusalem artichokes are 9.5, 10 feet tall, and the heads are starting to open up. If we go up here and we do something like this, you can see lovely yellows. I bet within a week this is going to be open and the last bit of flowering yellow in the garden for the year. In this corner of negligence, where I let the herbs just go crazy, I still can get some basil in there. The catnip is just crazy, and the lavender I should put somewhere else, but I think that will come back. The strawberry asparagus bed, I'll chop these down when they start to go brown near the end of October, or the middle of October. But I had a lot of thinning out to do here. This was all mint in between, and you can see that it did squash out some of these strawberries and asparagus pretty badly. This path here, where all of the pumpkins and squash were, going way out over the fence, in between all the rows, and now they're no more. This is where the other pea trellis was, and potatoes. Again, you can see some of the ones on top, the varmints have been eating. That's okay. And the zinnias that I planted for a fall succession came up just fine. And now we've got some lovely color here at the end of the season, and I'm so glad for it. When I cleared away a lot of the morning glories, except for this chunk that I forgot, I see that my blackberries are finally starting to mature. I think next year we might actually get a crop, and these might be strong enough to finally start spreading. You can see the hedge of Mexican sunflowers from behind. I thinned out and retrellised some of the tomatoes. Absolutely abysmal this year. Last year they were up 9 feet tall. I did a much better job staking them, but I let these get overgrown with the leaves of the squash on top of them, and they're just pretty pathetic. I'm thinking of actually just harvesting all the tomatoes now, since we're going to start getting days or nights in the 40s, close to freezing, and just make some salsa, pull them out and call it a day. And down here, looks like that's a zinnia. I do have some ground cherries, but it's mostly just a mess. I think there's a carrot or two. And in the frontmost bed, this is all that's left of what I think was the harvestable cabbage. This head here is lovely. We'll be able to pull that and have some nice red cabbage. But I don't think any of these necessarily will be. It might have a head. I left this here because as I was pulling out all the squash, I found things like this. As you pull hard enough, they just snapped off. That's massive. Here, Dutch crookneck squash to scale. This would make a lovely birdhouse, but it also makes a delicious soup. We cook with a lot of squash, particularly in the winter, so I'll chop this up and freeze it and it will not go to waste. But finishing off, absolutely abysmal with my cabbage. I'm so disappointed. I'm not sure if these just provided too much shade or if the nutrients weren't right or what. But none of my broccoli propagated, actually put on heads. None of my Brussels sprouts did anything. And I just get this kind of flat leaf intermix here that's really not usable for anything except cutting it up and putting it on for mulch. So very disappointing. On a happier note though, you can see that the blueberry bushes in between the Mexican sunflowers survived and came back quite nicely. So we'll protect those over this winter, and hopefully they'll be producing nicely next year. And that's all that I want to share with you as I stop and smell the flowers. Ooh, they actually do kind of smell nice. They smell earthy, not like a flower, an earthy flower. And butterflies, let's turn you around. You can see that monarch kind of hovering around. He usually lives here. I'm disturbing his space, or her space. I don't know how to gender a butterfly. Isn't that pretty? It's effectively just cleanup time. Every time I come out here, I will harvest something and be done with it. One day I'll harvest the potatoes, store them, they'll be all done. Next day I'll harvest all the tomatoes, make some salsa, that'll be done. Slowly ripping it out of the garden, adding it to the compost now. In another 3 or 4 weeks time, many leaves will be down, and I'll mulch them and cover up the beds, and then they can sleep for the winter time. So, how are things going in your garden? Are you doing what I'm doing now? What were your successes and failures? Goodness knows I've got a story to tell. I'm sure you do too. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like this, you know what to do. And until next update, happy gardening, guys. Take care.